The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, along with former Oshkosh Mayor and City Councilwoman Melanie Bloechl. One thing that we're going to do on this show is talk about something that is pretty prevalent these days, and that is computer security, computer safety. I think we've all heard, you'd have to be living under a rock not to have heard about computer viruses, computer worms. Just earlier in the week, as we're taping this show, computers around the world were hit with the Sasser worm that has caused immeasurable damage. And so we thought we would have someone on the show this evening who can talk about some of these issues and how we can protect ourselves and our computer systems, because we invest a lot of time and money into those systems. We are very pleased to welcome Natalie Pratt. Natalie is the Director of Operations of TeCrime International. This is a company that's based here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It specializes in the investigation of high technology crimes and computer forensics for corporations, attorneys, law enforcement agencies, and private individuals throughout the world. Natalie's career spans over 20 years of experience in computer security information and investigations, information systems management, managerial positions, and the military. She's also currently licensed as a private investigator in the state of Wisconsin. And I want to welcome you to the show, but you've sent over some just kind of snippets of some of the things that you've done. And I want to throw these out for the audience before we get into talking about the topics tonight that we want to address. Some of your accomplishments, you've designed the computer forensics set for the TV show Law and Order. Yep. You've been quoted as a speaker in magazines and newspaper articles. You've spoken weekly on a radio talk show about internet safety. Mm-hmm. You've traveled to schools and churches throughout the Midwest teaching about the dangers of the internet. You've consulted with HBO on a new documentary series about saving kids. Now, is that on the air yet or no?
It's still in the making.
It is.
There's
okay.
still production phase on that.
When is that going to be coming out?
He was thinking about 3 to 6 months yet.
Okay.
And each episode will be a different aspect of kids' safety and how to protect them. The first one is debating whether parents should put hidden cameras in the home to watch their teenagers while they're away if the teenagers are getting involved with things they shouldn't be, and the debate over the privacy issue of the teenager versus the security and the safety of the parents. And there have been instances where the parents have actually caught their kids like setting fire to the house, and because they had that, it saved, and they were able to prove that the child did it, and it saved the house from burning down further, and so that's the first episode, is the whole privacy debate.
What's the name of that show? Do you know offhand?
To Save a Kid.
Okay, To Save a Kid.
To save the house. Jeez.
Two other real quick accomplishments here. You've consulted with Oprah Winfrey and the Maury Povich Show about computer crimes, and you are considered a computer expert in the federal court system in the state of Arizona. Yep. I am very
so impressed.
Yeah, I am too. And there's so many things. I was looking at your website. You do anything and everything, I think.
Connect it with computer and internet.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Telecommunications, any high technology, and high technology refers to like computers, cell phones, the PDAs, anything connected with that.
Got mine right here.
Yeah, you may, for those of us who aren't very techy, and I was talking to Natalie about this off camera, I said if there's one person still alive that doesn't have the techno gene, I would unfortunately have to raise my hand. PDAs, personal what? What
Digital assistant.
Okay, and that would be these little doohickeys right here.
The Palm Pilot.
The Palm Pilot, yeah, there we go. I don't have one of those.
Well,
this is my Palm Pilot.
I proudly carry mine everywhere, as you know. Three main issues I thought we might address tonight, and then others if we have time. But as I mentioned in the outset, Natalie, computer viruses and worms are just huge. They're running rampant, and they seem to come in waves, and they're getting more and more destructive, it seems. Also, identity theft, and this nasty thing of spam. and I guess I want to kind of start there, because President Bush earlier this year signed an anti-spam law, and honest to God, I don't know what good this thing does, because nobody seems to know who to report the spam incidents to. I've contacted the consumer protection people. They have sent me to Washington, D.C., to the trade whatever, I don't know what it is out there, I've forgotten, I'm so frustrated with it, but some kind of a trade organization or whatever out in D.C. They don't respond to emails, and yet the spam keeps coming. First of all, for anyone who is not aware of what spam is, why don't we tell them what spam is, and then talk about how we start getting spam and what in the world we can do to get rid of it.
Spam is unsolicited email. It's all the Viagra or the ads that you get, the home mortgages, the debt reduction, clear your credit up, anything like that that you basically don't want, and that's an advertisement, is classified as spam. And that is sent out by people who harvest email addresses. And there's actual harvesters on the internet that you can download a harvester for free and then run it 24 hours a day, and that will go out and search for all the email addresses and just harvest them in. And I ran it for an hour or two, and I had thousands and thousands of email addresses just to see what I could do. And then what they do is they bulk that up into one package, and then they sell it to people who want to send out their ads, to many people, and then they'll sell it at $9.95, 10,000 email addresses. And so the harvesters are all over there, and they're running constantly. So every time a new email address comes on, they can harvest that in and put it into a package and then sell your email address to everybody else, and then it gets sold. So the worst thing you can do is, when you get the spam, is to reply back and say, take me off this list, because that's how they verify that they have an actual email address, because the harvesters don't verify that. They just harvest it in, and it could be old, it could be non-existent. And so if you reply back and say, take me off this email, I don't want this, or start telling a message, then they know, okay, this is a good email. So then your email address just got bumped up a bit and is sold then as guaranteed email addresses, and so then you're sold even more, and so you'll get a lot more of it. A lot of it comes to when you're visiting websites. There's programs out there called cookies, and that a website can put a cookie on there, and it'll track who comes to it and tells you what kind of information about you. And they take that cookie and they can send you information back. So say you visit a pornography site. They say, oh, this person must like porn, so I'm going to send them all this porn email because I know who it is, and I'm going to send it back to them. So then they get it that way. So it goes mainly by harvesters visiting email sites. If you have a website out there, a lot of them just go and look at websites and pull off the email addresses on the website.
And we do. And, we have never used our Eye on Oshkosh address for anything, not to send e-greeting cards, not to sign up for nothing. We have only responded to people who have legitimately written to us about the show or topics they'd like to see, whatever. And I would say that our website address is getting somewhere between 27 and 70 spam emails a day. And I don't bother opening them. I just go through and click, 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 and they're all just deleted. I'm not going to screw with it, but it's a pain because, if for some reason you don't get on for a day or two, it might fill up your mailbox.
And it doesn't, because sometimes once you get on those lists, you can get, 10, 20, 15 a day, and it keeps adding. I get, thousands more because of all the different sites I visit and the different things I'm on, and so I have a whole filter for it. One of the things, if you're on a website, then put in like the no spam in front of it in capital letters, and then just make a note for people to remove that before emailing you, because then the harvesters can't pick it up, because if they see no spam at whatever yours is, Eye on Oshkosh, they'll think that's your email address, but in reality it's just Eye on Oshkosh at,
So what would we do then, Natalie?
Just when you type out your email address, say it's info@Eye on Oshkosh, okay? Then you take that info, and instead of just having info, put in no spam in capital letters before that, and have no spam info at Ion Oshkosh. Because then the harvesters can't pick it up because they can see that it's not a real email. It looks like a real email address, but that no spam will clog up their system.
So ours is hosts at ionoshkosh.com. So in caps, if I'm sending out, you know, our email address to someone, I should just say no spam, all in caps.
No spam, all in caps, right before that. You know,
then
that's what, yeah, and then have that on your website, so that will, you know, clog up the harvesters from getting it. But then you tell people, okay, when you want to email me back, take out that no spam, and then they can email you.
But so, no space in between the no spam
no
and
space,
hosts.
yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
When you say, now when you do that no spam, does that work like a filter then?
Well, it's not an actual email address is what it is, so it doesn't go anywhere. So they get an error back saying this isn't a good email address, and so they leave you off their list. And so it's going to say, oh, well, this isn't accurate, and then they won't even send you anything.
Well, don't they get smart and they say, well, we'll just take off the no spam part of it? And then
it's all automatic, and there's so many thousands of them out there that to have a person go in and do that individually, they wouldn't have time. They want everything automatic, so it's easy. And
so they can sell your list for $9.95.
Yeah, and it takes them an hour to, you know, harvest it in, and then they sell it, you know, so. But that's one way, like on websites, is to put something like that in there so that it just, you know, a way to deter them a little bit. You know.
So, but on the website itself now, I think we probably have our address there. Would we have to do that on there too then?
That's the main place,
okay,
you know, people do it is on the website, because when you have the harvesters, they go to websites and they look at websites and get them off of there is how most of the harvesters will work.
Okay, all right.
So,
if someone is getting a lot of spam, do you have any idea who we're supposed to be reporting this to?
The best place is internet providers take spam very seriously. And so if they get a complaint that someone is sending out spam, they'll send their person a warning. You know, so if their subscriber is sending a lot of spam, they send them a warning. So when you get a spam, most email programs will have a way to open up the expanded email message, which is called the headers. And it's like by looking at the properties, you know, and then view headers. And then there's an IP number in there that's stamped on every email address. And you take the very bottom IP number, and then what you can do is there's programs out there called Sam Spade is a popular one. And if you go to Google and type in Sam Spade, it'll come up with the website. You put in that IP number, and it's going to tell you the name and address and phone number of the internet provider of who's sending that out, and it'll give you an abuse email address, usually abuse at the internet service provider. And then you email them and say, this person continually sends me this unwanted email, I don't want this. You know, and then they generally take those very seriously, you know, and will either cut the account. You know, if they cut the account and close it, they can just go someplace else and open another one, but it stops them, and it makes it more of a hassle for them to do. So.
See, I think it's good that President Bush tried to do something about this, but, you know, like so much in government, they only go so far.
And that's for like the worst of the people, you know, the ones that send out 10 million a day. You know, you get people that send out, you know, 1,000 or 2 a day, you know, and there's just so many of them that they can't go after all of them. So they go for the worst offenders with that one, you know. A lot of them will do the other tactic of, if it's a legitimate company that's doing it, they find out the information, you know, by doing a Google search, you can find the company information, and we'll call them up and say, well, I'm charging you $25 an hour for reading your email that you sent to me because you're taking up my time and effort, and I'll be sending you an invoice and a bill, you know, and it's enough to wake them up, you know, and say, well, you know, we're taking this seriously, we're not going to, you know, buy your services because you're doing this, you know, and so if it's a legitimate company, they'll take that seriously and stop, because you do get a lot of new people on the internet that don't realize, you know, hey, people don't like this, I, you know, shouldn't be doing this, and they get suckered into, you know, purchasing one of these programs thinking, oh, this is an easy, cheap advertising, I'll do this, and they don't realize that people get turned off by it. So if it's a legitimate company, you know, and you say that, you'd actually be doing them a favor, and then they'll stop it as well, and they won't be sending you more that way. So.
Are there other things that people can do to avoid being the victim of a lot of spam? you know, visiting certain sites. I mean, I tend to send e-cards from time to time, but I don't seem to be getting inundated with email as a result of, or rather spam as a result of those e-cards. But I have heard that visiting certain kind of sites, like the pornography sites and so forth, are there other sites out there that these harvesters are grabbing things, or you're unwittingly signing up for certain offers and you don't realize it?
So many of them nowadays that, you know, it's hard to give you the list of everywhere not to go. If you're getting a lot of it, you have most of the email programs and internet providers will provide like spam filters. You know, you can put a spam filter and then have it deleted right at your internet provider, so it doesn't even come into you. And that way, you know, you can just kind of, you know, compensate for it too, because so many of the marketing ploys out there now is to get that information. You know, and there's obviously ones like the porn sites, you know, that's the major ones. Then you get a lot of the gaming sites, you know, that the kids go to. A lot of the teenage sites that attract the kids do a lot of that, because they're the ones that, you know, are attracting the kids will, you know, purchase it or you know, come to that, you know, site without taking the precautions as well. So it's difficult to stop it from coming because it's so prevalent now. Yeah. But once it does come in, you know, you can have alternatives for, you know, protecting yourself from getting too much of it.
Probably never be able to outlaw it all completely or get rid of it all completely.
We haven't been able to get rid of junk mail yet. You know what I mean? It still comes right to the old mailbox. So, I mean, if the Pony Express can still get junk mail, I think the internet is still relatively new. We got to give it a little time.
That's true. Viruses and worms. I think at one time or another we have probably all been hit by a virus or a worm, and our good friend Melanie here just had one earlier this week.
I had the sassy sasser.
Yeah, yeah, lucky you. What is a worm or a virus for our computer illiterate friends?
Thank you. And if you notice, you may not be picking up on this, but every time they say somebody who doesn't know anything about computers or computer illiterate, she looks kind of nicely over at me, which is true. That's okay.
Well, that's all right. There are things I'm not aware of that you know a lot about, and I'm...
Could you make a list of those? It would make me feel a lot better. Let's go on to the worm, yeah.
What are worms and viruses,
They're
and what do they
actually
do?
Two different things. You have three main issues that are out there when you come to worms and viruses. A worm will replicate, and so when you get it into your system, it copies itself over and over and mails itself out to other people, usually in your email address book. And so it's a replicating object that will keep building until it slowly takes all the resources out of your computer and slows it down, and eventually you can't run anything. A virus does damage. You know, it deletes files, it causes some type of damage in the computer. And then you have a Trojan, which takes puts information into your computer so it can get back into it and opens up a back door so it can come back into your computer at any time and get your information or act like it was actually sitting at your computer. Open up your files, open up your documents, and have control of your computer as if they were actually there.
Okay, this sounds really scary. It's real. I mean, how do you get this Trojan?
Trojans can come any number of ways. It can come via email too as an attachment. You know, when you open the attachments on the email that you're not, the extensions you always want to be careful of is if it ends with like .exe, .scr. You know, those are the extensions that are commonly virus or, you know, worms, or people lump everything as saying virus, and they lump worms and Trojans and all that under the word virus just because it's easier. So if you have a file, a document that's attached to an email that ends with .exe, for example, that's an exec file. That means it's going to do something. So if you click on that, you're automatically opening it and letting it run on your computer. So whether it's a Trojan, whether it's a worm, whether it's a virus, it just opened and ran on your computer. So you never want to open anything with an extension that is no, and you can run, if you go like to Norton Antivirus or McAfee, they give you a list of all the different extensions that are prone to viruses, and then you can look at them and get the list of ones not to open. You know, and that's not to say that like a document file won't have that in, because there are some that could sneak in under that as well, but generally it's going to be one of the extensions that are, you know, will run the program.
So okay, let's say you get now, like I was, do you say infected with the worm? Is that correct terminology?
Yeah.
So I had this Sasser thing. Boy, that was a lot of fun. You're working on your computer, all of a sudden it just kicks you out, and then it'll reboot your computer in like 30 seconds, but it keeps doing that all day. You're just like, I swear to God, I'm going to pick this thing up and wheel it right out the window. And you know, because I'm not very technologically sound, and that kid might get around about this, I kept thinking, well, 99% of the time when I have problems like this, it's operator error. So I must have hit something or done something, but it just kept doing it. And then I get this email from someone at our corporate headquarters that says, you know, the Sasser worm is out there, there are fixes to be had. So I fixed this thing, and now all of a sudden on my computer, what I'm getting all the time is virus detected, virus detected. I feel like that, you know, Will Rogers, danger, danger. Do you remember those cartoons? You know, and it's so frustrating because I thought, well, gee, you know, I did this whole patch thing and it's fixed, and I'm all happy because I actually was able to do it with little to no trouble. And now it's saying virus detected all the time. Do I still have a problem then, evidently?
You may have other viruses on there, or it may not have
goody.
completely gotten rid of it.
So then do I go back in and do the same fix all over again?
You may want to run like a regular antivirus program like Norton. Norton's one of the better ones. McAfee is up there. Those are the two most popular ones. Put that on there, and then you need to do a live update to make sure you have the most up-to-date virus definitions. Because if you put an antivirus program on there, but you don't have the up-to-date definitions, it's absolutely useless. So if you put that on there and their definitions are up to date, and then you run it again and it comes back with a virus, then you know for sure you have one. But if it comes back clean, you can be very confident that, you know, you're okay.
How do you know if you have this Trojan thing that you were talking about? Because when you started saying, you know, they can open the back door and they can come in and pretend like they're sitting at your computer, I got to tell you, that is freaking me out, you know.
The most popular Trojans now are caught by like Norton and McAfee. So they should catch, you know, there's always, as soon as they come up with, you know, a catch for it, then the hackers and the other people come up with a way around it. So it's a never-ending battle, you know, but that's why it's so important to keep up the virus definitions. Why
do I have to ask you, not like you would know, but why are there snot brats out there that take their time to develop viruses and worms and Trojans and all this stuff just to make life miserable for some poor schmuck like me who's just trying to send, you know, a report or an email? I mean, these are obviously very brilliant people. Wouldn't they be
most of them are
off?
Teenagers. The average computer virus is created by teenagers, and they do it for, most of them will do it like for the bragging rights. You know, well, I created this virus and this took down how many computers, or this took down the government, or this did X, Y, Z. And that's why if you open up a virus, and many times they'll have like their identity or their secret handle or some kind of code in there so that they can claim the right, so that everybody else in the industry knows that they were the one who did it. And so they all have their underground handles that they use, and so they'll put that in the virus code somewhere. And that's how a lot of the names come about, you know, like the different viruses, because they take it from whatever code they put in there or some part of it.
How are they getting this kind of education? I mean, they're teenagers. How in the world are they getting this kind of education to be able to do this?
Most of it's free on the internet. You can go download any number of viruses on the internet and take them and then make them your own and then rename them. There's what's called kiddie scripts on there for the ones who are very non-literate.
I'm smiling. There you go.
So the ones that you don't know how to do it or are just learning, they take these kiddie scripts and then it says, okay, change this or do this, and then they make those few changes, and then they have a brand new virus that they can release out there.
Why don't national governments, you know, whether it's the United States, Canada, Germany, like where the Sasser creator is from, why aren't these governments, when they know what problems this is causing worldwide, why don't they do something to shut those types of websites down that are offering this information?
Because it would have to take the cooperation of all the governments. You know, you have countries like the Netherlands, where a lot of the drug and things come from the Netherlands because their drug laws are so lenient over there. So you get those kind of sales over there. You get another country that's very lenient in another area, and so those ones will have the sites posted on there and say, well, download these viruses. You know, Russia's a big one. You know, I can go to 100 different Russian sites and download just thousands and thousands of different types of viruses, and it's step-by-step instructions. You know, and you get the virus on there and it tells you how to do it, and then you think of a unique name on your email to make people open it, you know, information about you or your bill or your account.
You just won $1 million.
Yeah, something that will make them open the attachment, you know, and the more intriguing they make it, the more people that will open it, and then the more the virus spreads. So most of that, you know, unless, you know, they're very, you know, knowledgeable in computer programming, most of it's just gotten off the internet as a starting point, you know, and then they can program it from there.
I didn't even know that stuff was out there.
But there are some now, some of these viruses or worms that I've been reading, and I'm assuming it's true, because I'm hearing it from a lot of different sources, that some of this stuff gets into your computer just by virtue of coming into your computer. It doesn't have to come by way of attachment.
Yeah.
Do you still have to open the email, or can it infect you just by virtue of you're receiving it?
That's where the big debate is right now with like Microsoft Windows and the different exploits and security flaws that they have. And what they'll do is they'll target one of those exploits, and they say, okay, we know Windows is weak in this area, so we're going to find some kind of virus that will go in there, whether they visit a website, whether they, you know, just have the email come in, you know, and they don't have to open the attachment. However, we can do it so that, you know, we'll target that area. And so that's why it's important with the security updates that Windows sends out. A lot of computers, you can download the security updates and the patches, and if you put those on there, then that covers them, you know, and protects you from those. But as long as there's, you know, exploits and open little areas and flaws, which there always will be every time you create, you know, Windows or a program, you know, that's just going to happen, then there'll be someone who's going to try and find their way into it and create some kind of virus or program that can target that area. So.
Wow.
I guess I'm just not that smart.
Well, you just need to go to, you know, Kitty Scripts or something, and you too can.
I could call it Melly Messer.
Yeah, there you go. And you too can have your claim to fame.
No,
so that's
thanks.
2 things we'll have to watch for you.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting with this Sasser worm, because from what the news reports have been that I read, is that he realized what he created. He tried to create something to counter-attack that so the damage wouldn't be so bad, and it ended up doing worse damage. So, you know, he's not as smart as he thought either, I guess. Identity theft. This is something that everybody is concerned about. It's becoming more rampant. I'll let you take this one, because you've had a personal experience.
We just had a situation in our own family where a member of our family had lost several $1,000s out of a checking account, and there were no credit cards lost, no check cashing cards lost, nothing stolen, nothing missing, and nobody could figure out how this could happen. But evidently, money was being spent in Reno or, you know, Nevada, and people were having a really good time. And you know, I think I haven't always been real paranoid about identity theft, because I guess I always thought that was going to happen to somebody else, and then it starts happening to people close to you. And you know, I thought I was doing something really big. I went out and bought myself a shredder. I'm not kidding you. I was like, I have to have a shredder. I want a crisscross shredder. It's got to take credit cards. Now I'm really, really paranoid. And working in healthcare, there has also been this huge swing in people's attitude since all this identity theft has really come to the forefront, and people are getting better educated and more knowledgeable. People are much more reluctant to give Social Security numbers. One of the things we've also always asked for is a driver's license, identification if they wanted to come and pick up records, to take a copy of their driver's license so we could actually prove that we checked and matched face to identification. They don't want to do that. They don't want to give Social Security numbers in order to register as a patient in order to come and have services done. And from a healthcare standpoint, for somebody like me, you're answering to a corporation whose whole database is set up based on what the insurance companies need from you, the HIPAA laws, you know, the patient information laws, what you're supposed to get and what you're not supposed to share, and how you protect people's rights. So my concern is obviously with identity theft. How can you have your identity stolen? You have all your credit cards with you, you have your check cashing card with you, nothing has been stolen to your knowledge, nothing has been taken to your knowledge. How does this happen?
It starts out in many different ways, you know, and it's so common now. Every 79 seconds now they estimate that someone's identity is being stolen somewhere in the United States. And so it's common. Every person who is a victim of identity theft, the average loss is about $1,000 that they won't be able to recover. You know, obviously some's a lot more, some's less, but it averages out per $1,000. And you know, and so it's growing, you know, in such a rate that, you know, everybody is so concerned with it, and you have the privacy experts out there saying, don't give out your social security number, because once they get that, then that's just an open gold mine to get more information. A lot of it is done by social engineering, it's called, where you have a target that they're going to target you, and they want to get information. So say you have a daughter that, you know, went to high school, college somewhere. This person calls up and says, oh, I'm a classmate of so-and-so. We went to school together. I know her, and I'm trying to find out where she's located now. You know, can you tell her, because I'd really like to touch base with her. You know, it's an older person, so they, oh yeah, my daughter would like to know this classmate. And so they give a little bit of information. So then they use that information and then they build on something else. Then they call, say, like the power company and say, well, you know, I'm so-and-so, and, you know, and give them a story, and then get some more information about their address and their information. And so a lot of it is done with just social engineering, because you get some smooth talkers that can, you know, get information out of anybody, and the people don't realize they're giving valuable information. And once you get a piece or two of information, then you can just build on that. It's like you have a say 18-year-old beautiful looking girl driving downtown, you know, maybe a not quite so nice area of town. She's driving her parents' car that they're selling, you know, for sale sign, called, you know, XYZ number. Well, now that person says, oh, well, this person must be connected to this phone number. Phone numbers are very easy to trace. So then they call that, they trace that number. Now they know where this girl lives and her address and her phone number and everything like that. So then they have that information. Then they can build on that, you know, and either use it, you know, for identity theft, for, you know, targeting with harassment, stalking, any number of things. There's a big one that was going around on the East Coast for a while, where people would go into a restaurant, you know, they'd pay with their credit card, and they'd, you know, give the credit card to the waiter or waitresses to run through the terminal. Then what that person would do is, while they had that credit card in their possession, they'd write those numbers down, and the person would go back then, not notice anything different, and they would keep that number. Then 2 or 3 days later, when someone would pay with cash, they would take that and then run that old credit card through the credit card for that same amount, and then pocket the cash. Oh. And so the people didn't realize that they were being targeted, because they saw the different receipts and said, oh yeah, I go to that restaurant, but I didn't think I went 2 or 3 times this month, or I didn't think I went that many times. Well, maybe I did, you know, but they don't pick up on it right away, because they see the things, and they're used to going to that place, and so they recognize it. And so they were getting thousands and thousands of dollars, because, you know, they would, and the restaurant managers didn't pick up on it, because the day's receipts matched. You know, they matched exactly, because they would take the cash and then charge these other credit cards. You know, and so they would have, yeah, so there's some very elaborate schemes. And so they would only run it per month, because that's the billing cycle. And so someone would catch on after a month, you know, or somebody would pick up and say, well, I didn't go here 15 times this month, you know, I know that. And so then they would report it to the restaurant manager, and so then by then the waiters or waitresses were long gone, you know, and moved on to the next one.
So how does, but I mean, if you don't lose any cards, you know, you're using a check cashing card or what have you, all your cards are in your possession, your checkbook's intact, all the valuable, vital information that you're supposed to hang on to is okay. How do they get into your checking account to wipe you out for $2 grand?
Well, one of the ways too that you can do it is, if you ever receive like a check in the mail that you weren't expecting, you won, you know, this prize, maybe $5, $10, you know, we're returning this, you cash that. Well, then that check, canceled check, goes back to that person. So then they know where your bank account is and your bank, because they see what bank it was cashed at or deposited at. So then what they do is they build on that information. So they say, okay, I know this person here uses this bank, you know, and then they take that, and then they can build on that by, you know, with the social engineering, and then call the bank. You know, now that's why you want to put passwords on everything nowadays, on your electrical accounts, on bank accounts, any information that you have like that, that you have to have the password to access it, and then otherwise they won't give out information.
Well, I guess my confusion is that, you know, whenever I've used a credit card or what have you, they've always been pretty good about checking my signature. You know, although they've never said, gee, could I have a driver's license to make sure it's really you? Although in town, I'm unfortunately recognizable and don't get away with too much. But, you know, let's just say you're not recognizable. Isn't there a way that there should be a safety measure? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm using a credit card, and I signed the back of it, and then, of course, I'm signing the receipt. Well, I used to be able to sign my mother's name rather convincingly on some of my school excuses, I have to tell you. So I mean,
this is how it begins.
Well,
this is how
it's a matter of necessity. But do you know what I'm saying? Okay, so I'm using a credit card, and if I can sign it so convincingly enough that it matches the one on the back of the charge card, they never check any kind of picture ID to see if my identity matches that of the charge cards.
And most of them don't. That's why a lot of them are going out with a picture on the credit card, you know, just for that reason, so you can do a quick check on it. Because if you're a cashier and you've got 15 people waiting in line, you don't want to have them pull out the driver's license. You know, you want to do it for speed. You know, and so it's hard for them to be checking everything. You know, and the biggest issue is if the credit card leaves your possession. You know, you're sitting at the table, you know, at the dinner, and you send the credit card back with the waiter. When that credit card leaves your possession, that's when you're in the danger, because then anybody could write down, you know, the credit card number, the expiration date, and the name, you know, and then they can do anything, you know, online. You know, especially it's harder to do it than in town where you need the actual credit card, but online, you know, you could do it because you can just put in that information.
Or on the 800 numbers.
Yeah, you know.
Is do you have suggestions, like, because that happens quite often where people, you know, especially for business, and I've done this, you know, you slide it in the sleeve of the nice foldy jacket and you send it off with the waitress, and she comes back and gives you a receipt, and you never really think too much of it. Do you have suggestions for people that say, hey, you know, I'll walk my charge card right up to the register?
That if you want to be the ultimate in safety, never let it out of your possession where someone would have the time, even a minute or two, to write down those numbers. You know, when you leave the restaurant, you know, walk up to the cashier and check out there. If they say, well, I'll take it up for you, say, no, I'll just pay when I leave, you know, and then they pay on their way out. You know, where any type of situation like that where it'd have to, restaurants are the most common because that's the one where you're sitting at the table and they'll take it up front. You know, but any time when that credit card leaves your possession for any amount of time, you know, that they could write it down. That's what you don't want to do. You know, and online, you know, when you order, you know, products online, you know, if you order, you want to make sure when you have your internet site that you're ordering from, down in the bottom right-hand corner is a little padlock. You want to make sure that padlock is closed. It's going to be yellow and it'll be closed. If that's closed, then it's a secure site and they've taken, you know, all the necessary measures to prevent it from, you know, anybody accessing it. So if you're ordering from a company online that doesn't have that closed, you know, you're putting yourself at risk for someone, you know, getting it. Never send credit card numbers like through email, you know, and email a company and say, well, I want to order this, here's my credit card. That's the worst way you can ever send credit card information. You know, just even once you get it on site, you know, I had a case where these people from Indonesia were taking them, you know, and they just harvest all these credit card numbers from actual people from all over the world and then give them out so that, and they were actual people, but they had ordered something online, they had gotten their number, you know, and they were just 1, 2, 3, and then they used them for all of their purchases and items that they want to get. So online, it's best if you order stuff online and you're going to order online, it's best to use a credit card, but have a designated credit card for online, because if you have a credit card companies are excellent for, you know, if you have a problem or if there's fraud or something, for refunding your money. They'll refund it, and well, okay. The majority of them do. You know, so you're safer, but if you use a check by phone, if you use something like that, then it's harder to recover your money. Whereas if you do with the credit card, you can recover your money a lot easier than you would if you did it in another means.
What is this kind of fraud, the identity theft and privacy theft? Do you have any kind of estimates as to what this is costing the United States in dollars and cents? Because let's face it, you know, you've got people, you said the average person loses $1,000. That's nothing probably compared to the credit card companies who are saying, you know what, you only have to cover $50 of it and then the rest, you know, we're insured for and whatnot. But it's like anything else. These insurance premiums got to be sky high for some of these companies. Is there any dollar
I think the
figure?
last figure I saw, and I can't recall exactly who did it, but I think it was like close to $750 million that has been lost in identity theft alone.
Over what period of time, Natalie?
Most of the statistics started like around the year 2000, 1999, 2000s, where most of them, because that's, before that you didn't really have too much of an issue with it because the internet wasn't that prevalent and you didn't have so many of the easy accessible ways to getting information as what you do now.
And is that what has caused this huge spike in identity theft, is the internet?
It's, well, I mean, I don't want to blame it all
there
on
you go,
the internet.
see, Brett, looking out for your black door there, Natalie. But I mean,
well,
what else would explain it,
as
though,
soon
really?
as you say that, there's going to be people who say, oh yeah, but the internet's great, you know, because there is a lot of good about it. But yes, you know, it is so easy to get information about anybody online now, and to get most of the records, you know, public records are online because then they don't have to staff people at the offices. They can just go online and look them up. And so you can sit up here in Wisconsin and get all the information you want to on somebody in New Mexico because you just log into their public records and look up their, you know, court histories, you know, their information, and the amount of information you can get on someone is just, it's incredible.
It is phenomenal.
Is that a good thing, though? I mean, I guess there's certain things that just need to be.
But see, these are they're public records anyway. It's just making it that much easier to access them.
Yeah, I suppose, and I guess that's probably what, you know, I've always had a fear factor about computers, and this is exactly why. I predicted this was going to happen. One of the other things, Natalie, because we did talk about hospital records being tied to Social Security numbers, and usually your birth date, and patients' insurance records are all tied to Social Security numbers, which also have a lot of it. What do you tell folks that say, you know what, I can't access my health records, I can't even sign into the hospital, I can't get anything done, because if I don't get my Social Security number, they won't process my claim, they won't put me in as an inpatient in the hospital and I need surgery, you know. Is there a way that people can get around using your Social Security number and still get the things that they need to get? I mean, can they be, because I've run into people who are adamant about not using that Social Security number, just absolutely adamant.
If you use it, it's good to then be aware that you're using it and check, you know, there's 3 main credit reporting bureaus out there. You know, check them each, every couple of months, you know, every 6 months, every year, and see what's showing up on your credit report. Because if someone's using your identity, that's going to start showing up on your credit that, you know, this account was open or that account was open. And so check your, you know, credit reports for all 3 of them regularly. Check. Whatchamacallit, there's, I think you have the information here, with the hospital records, with getting your hospital records, and verify that that's all accurate. And you can do it for, it was a small fee that you
People can say no, though, to,
they can say
using Social Security numbers and just say, I'm absolutely
not
going to give that to you.
They can say no, but they have to be aware of the consequences of it. You know, if they say no, okay, I'm not going to do it, then they may not be, you know, if it's a hospital policy, you know, until all of these issues get worked out and a good system gets in place to protect people from identity theft, but also allow, you know, the hospitals and things to track their patients and to do the information that they need, there's going to be this gap in there of, you know, some people that don't want to do it, and then they can't do it because of hospital policy, or some people that do it but then are just going to be more careful and watch themselves because they are doing it. So it's going to be really iffy here for a while.
That's what we should get you working on, is working with the legislature on how to figure out how to process patient information that is not tied to Social Security numbers, because that is absolutely, it has become huge.
But a lot of it is the insurance companies. They require Social Security numbers and things like that. And what's really ironic about this is, I mean, it's just such an interesting corollary, is that, you know, it's the insurance companies who are taking the biggest hit with identity theft, and yet it's the insurance companies who continue to perpetuate this by requiring a social for this and a social for that. And tied in with them is the pharmaceutical companies. I told you what I went through with Walgreens, what, about 3 or 4 months ago, with them demanding my Social Security number. And I made quite a little fussy-wussy.
A sasser.
Well, yeah.
I just have one quick other question for you. My daughter is college age, and it's really interesting because she doesn't even live at home anymore. But we continue to get credit card applications at home for her. And of course it's like, hey kid, how about joining us? is that something, I mean, I just have historically just thrown it in the garbage. Is that something you need to be shredding, or?
Any application that you get like that with credit cards, you should always shred all of those, because if someone would get that and then send it in under your name, then they could start opening up credit card accounts in your name. So any type of credit card, things, bank loan ones, get $5,000 and, shred all of those, because that's got your information, your name, your address, and all they'd have to do is fill out the, application, and if they're good with the social engineering, they could start opening accounts, with it. As these issues become more, prevalent and they're more aware of them, the banks and other institutions are taking precautions against that as well. But,
Really?
Like I said, we're at that in-between stage right now where it's
So just
exploding
shred.
with crime. Shred everything.
And you said that the crisscross shredder is the right one to
Don't go with the standard one-line shred, because those can be taped. Dumpster diving and trash pickups are one of the ultimate ways of thieves and identity thefts. All they have to do is swing past your house on garbage day, pick up your garbage bags, and then go through them, and you can get a wealth of information.
Really?
And, they go through garbage all the time. And
See, I've got the straight shredder, but what I do,
because I like this after you're all done.
No, well, I pull some of it out and put it into a different garbage can. so they'd have
Just
to go
get the
through all the
crisscross
bags.
shredder.
Well, I just bought a new shredder 2 months ago.
This kind of stuff has made me so nervous. I'm so glad that you're on.
You're going to go home and
I'm just
even
start
like
shredding
in a paranoid state. You're going to be shredding
like
everything.
even electrical bills, phone bills, if you don't save them and file them, shred all of those. Don't ever throw an electrical bill in the mail or in the junk. Don't ever throw your phone bills in the garbage, because they can get that, and then they have all the information there that they would need to, pretend they're you and call the company, and they'd have everything. They'd have your account number. They say, well, what's your account number? Well, it's right on the bill, so they could get any information they want to and start opening accounts. And all they have to do is get one, and then they can build on it. There's sites online where you can, with document fraud, I mean, that's a whole nother, avenue right there. You can get anything you need to make driver's license, birth certificates, social security numbers, you name it. They even tell you where to buy the paper, so it's legitimate paper, and the name and
My
address
God.
and phone number of the paper company that will sell it to you, and how to call and ask them for it so that you get it and you don't sound suspicious, how to get the notary public so that you can, stamp your own things, and what names to put on it so it blends in and looks. I mean, it's step-by-step instructions. So all they need is, a couple of pieces of your information, and they can just expand on that in just minutes. If they want to, they will.
If these people took their knowledge, we could have little Bill Gates running around all over the country, all over the world, because they've got all this knowledge if they just put it to good use.
Most of them, the ones who do this are, middle to upper class teens, because both parents are working, so the kids are home alone on the computer. They have a computer in the house. They have high-speed internet because both parents are working, so they have the money for that. The parents are gone when the kids come home, so there's no authority. So a lot of the hacking, viruses and stuff, the statistics show that the average of like 16 to 19 years old is where the bulk of that comes from, because they have access to it and they have the time in their hands, and they want the bragging rights. They want to see what they can do. They want to purchase, the online porn sites, so they get their parents' credit card number.
You were
and
really dull teenagers. Good. Go out and play kickball, or
Kick the can.
Yeah.
Natalie, you had earlier mentioned about putting passwords on things like utility accounts. Because typically they don't ask for a password. So what do you do? What can you do? Like here in town, we have Wisconsin Public Service. Do we just call
them up and ask? When I set up a bank account just recently, I said, I'd like to put a password on this, and then you put a password on it, so that, and not a common one. Don't use like your name or your address or something like that, because that's the first thing they try. There's password breakers out there too that will crack passwords, and they do a dictionary attack is what it's called, and they'll go through every word in the dictionary to try and see what they can do it, and which one will work on it. So that's more for like online stuff than like with the power, the phone or something. And just say you want to put a password on it, and they say okay, and they shouldn't give you any questions or things about it, because that's recommended quite a bit nowadays.
Well, one other thing that I wanted to ask you about is, when you're applying for a credit card, a lot of times, well, most times, these places will ask for your mother's maiden name. Now, I have heard that it is advisable not to use your mother's maiden name. Is that accurate or not, or, you know?
That one's pros and cons both ways. You know, if you can get by without it, it's better not to do it, because with the genealogy records and the information that's online now, with the way people are tracking, finding a mother's maiden name isn't that difficult, you know, to get that type of information. But, you know, that one, there's a lot of debate on yet with which way to go.
What I always worry about is, okay, you make up these passwords. What if you forget it? You know, I mean, you know, like you make up a word like fleekin' flaggin', you know, so no password breaker can go in and get it. And you go,
and just don't tape it to your computer, because then you have a workman that comes to your house and all your passwords are taped to your computer.
And fleekin' flaggin' is on your computer, and he'll know what you're.
You put it in a safe place.
Well, but I mean, that's the thing. Do you use always the same password?
No,
for
never
all of them?
ever use the same password, because once they get one, then they have access to everything.
So you got to make up all kinds of names like fleekin' flaggin' and frickin' fraggin' and all that kind of stuff.
Well, what you can do is you get like one word, you know, that's like lower and uppercase, and then make variations of that. Change like the numbers on it somehow, you know, and have like 75, and then have 3 or something, you know, and have like the 75 at the end, and then the next password, you know, have the same type of word but maybe 3 at the beginning. Or change, you know, like if you have a word like time, instead of putting the I, put the number 1 in there, you know, so that it can't be, you know, accessible, and it still looks like the word, but you got the number 1 instead of the letter I in there.
How can you be such a nice, calm lady and you watch this stuff every day? I'm having little heart palpitations thinking that there's criminals out there waiting to steal my identity. And I don't even have any money. You know, does this make you a little crazy after you see
it so much? You know, it's just like second nature, you know,
really?
and nothing surprises you, because there's so many, I mean, I've run across so many different aspects and so many different cases and so many different situations, and they're all so different and so, you know, vastly, you know, their characteristics, you know, and so after a while it's just like, okay, you know, and
wow, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you get, hey, that was So now if a regular Joe Blow off the street has a problem, Natalie, how do they reach you? How do they get a hold of you and say, you know?
All of our information's on our website. Email addresses, phone numbers, contact information is all on our website. So if they just log into the website, they can get all the information.
And we've had the website.
We've been putting it up on the screen.
So,
great.
Give us just, our time's running out, but give us just a quick laundry list of things that people can do to protect themselves from becoming victims of identity theft. We've named some already, putting passwords on accounts and not letting your credit cards or your bank card out of your sight. But what would be a laundry list of some of the others?
Just watching everything that gives your information, your personal information. You know, if you drive around town that says proud parent of, you know, honor roll student at XYZ school, you know, take those kind of things off your car, because then they know what school your child goes to. You know, there's what's called behavioral fingerprints, and that's what your behavior says about you. If you always go shopping in the same grocery store, you always go to the same church, you always walk your dog at 5 o'clock every day, people will know that about you, and then they can start putting that together.
We are in so much trouble.
I got to be changing when I walk my dogs. I got to take them on different routes.
And that's not because I'm spying on you. I know that I just picked that out of the blue.
By the way, we have people watching you right now.
You know, information that gives out, you know, when someone calls on the phone, you know, and says, I'm from this company, call them back. Don't give out information over the phone to someone who calls you. Always be the one that initiates the call. When you go traveling to different, you know, national parks, don't sign the guest register books, because anybody can go through the guest register book and see, you know, Jane Doe from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, you know, and then go and look up that information. Which, if you do like bridal registries at the store, you know, and that information is in there with your name and address, you know, and so.
God, everything about the way we live is changing.
Every single thing nowadays, you know.
Are you saying that they shouldn't do those?
They shouldn't do those things. I mean, you're always going to do that. You can't say, well, don't do it. These are like the ultimate. If you really want to protect your privacy, these are things to be aware of. That this is how people use it to get information.
Don't sign up for those drawings that are in stores to win the Chevy whatever.
Yeah, because
you know,
when you put in your business cards, you know, in one of those fish bowls to win the briefcase, someone can walk past and pick up a whole handful of, you know, those, you know, and have that information. you know, online, the sweepstakes contest. You know, if it's like a contest like Campbell Soup or Colgate, you know, a well-known company, you know, that's fine. But if it's a contest, win, you know, whatever, and it's a company you never heard of, it's not well-known, well, it could just be anybody putting the information up there to get your name and address and phone number and everything, and use that to, you know, get the information. Don't have like your driver's license number and details on your checks, because then when you have that, and I know it makes it handy, you know, and I used to do that too, but then they have your driver's license number. Once they have that information, you know, it's like home free for them. You know, those are little pieces of gold mine. Shred everything. Don't put it in the garbage. You know, most of if they want you, they're going to pick up your garbage. You know, if you see your bags of garbage missing one morning, you know, be careful.
Before the trash man's got in there.
I put kitty poop in there every once in a while, so they might just get a little surprised they weren't counting on it.
And that wouldn't even bother them, because I'm sure they've seen everything.
Kind of like this.
So, but
that's going to cost her another $1,000. I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm nervous.
we do have all those, and plus probably about 50 more listed on our website under privacy tips.
Okay.
And so they can go on there, and it lists everything, you know, all of those, and like I said, a whole, and or if they think they're a victim of it, you know, what they can do to prevent it, and if they
just
click
we've
on,
got a couple of minutes left. Just real quick, what should they do if they have become a victim of identity theft?
File a police report first, you know, so that's on record. Even if they can't do anything or nothing, you know, at least you have it on record, because then when you go back and dispute the charges with, you know, the credit card companies or with the businesses, they say, well, you know, how are you a victim? You know, and they say, well, we have, you know, this police report number on file, you know, this shows that we did file the claim. Cancel all your, you know, cards, everything, change all your passwords, change all your information, contact the credit bureaus, you know, and they'll flag your account, and then what they can do is if anybody does open anything, your account will be flagged, and that will automatically alert them, and then they'll track back where that person is opening it, and then they can try and find it. Have like your social security number checked every once in a while, so that you can see if anybody else is using it, you know, so that
How do you
How
do
do you
that?
do that? I was just going to
I mean, is that where you check to see what your balance is?
No, what
No?
we do, we can run the social security number, and you can get any, you know, private investigative agency or anybody that does it, and they run the social security number, and you can see if it comes back to you or if it comes back to other names. I think it's 85% of the people have mistakes on their credit reports and in their, because it's data processing. It's only as good as the person entering the data. So if you have a minimum wage person, you know, after 8 hours of work and they're tired and they've been up all night partying the night before and they're just typing it in there, you know, they make a mistake here or there, and so the majority of people have some type of mistake on credit reports, some kind of public information. There's mistakes on somewhere with something, you know. So if you have that information checked, you know, you can call the Social Security office too, you know, and have checks, you know, down there, the credit bureaus, you know, and just checking all that information so that you can make sure it is all accurate and catch it before it gets to the point of being too far. So.
This is fascinating.
It's fascinating, but
Scary as
it's
hell.
frightening.
Yeah.
It's really frightening. Have you ever been the victim of some kind of fraud or identity theft?
No. Well, we've had problems before, you know, with fraud with companies or people in the overseas and like Africa and stuff, because we used to sell a whole line of like hidden cameras and surveillance equipment, and what they would do is they would purchase them online with stolen credit cards, and then it was locking up our system because they had like $7,000–8,000 of products that they had ordered online, you know, because it went through automatically, and then it's deposited into our account, and then they froze the account and everything, and you know, and then you get the Secret Service and FBI involved, you know, and you know,
Everyone's involved.
Little kitty poop in there.
So it's everywhere.
This hour has gone by very quickly, but I think we got a lot of good information out there. Thank you very much, and we hope to have you back. And thank you folks very much for joining us. We'll see you next time. For Melanie Bloechl, I'm Cheryl Hentz. Until next time, take good care and keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.